Colorado hides more than mountains. Beneath the peaks and redstone cliffs, there are places that don't want to be found, and caves that seal themselves the moment you step inside. These aren't ghost stories. They're mysteries carved into stone, and to this day, they remain unexplained. And after this video, you'll feel them watching. Lock your doors, put on your headphones, and pull the blanket up tight, because after this video, you'll never see Colorado the same way again. The disappearing cave of Blanca Peak, the gateway that sealed itself. Some places disappear from maps, others erase themselves from memory, but there's one place in Colorado that seemed to vanish from reality. Blanca Peak is one of Colorado's sacred giants, a towering mountain in the Sangre de Cristo range, revered by native tribes, feared by some locals, and largely avoided by those who've heard what's buried beneath it. In the early 1970s, a group of amateur cavers and hikers, 3 men and 1 woman from Alamosa, set out to explore a network of natural stone formations near the base of Blanca. They had heard rumors from ranchers and old miners. There's a cave out there that wasn't meant to be found. Of course, that only made them want to find it more. It wasn't on any official trail map, but with topographical charts and a sense of adventure, they hiked off path into the deeper brush until they reached something they couldn't explain. Set between 2 steep, craggy rock faces was a narrow entrance, partly obscured by moss and debris, but behind it, darkness that felt wrong. Not the kind you get in a cave, the kind that almost felt like a void. Still, they went in. The first thing they noticed was the sound, or rather the absence of it. Their footsteps echoed once, and then not at all. Their flashlights seemed dimmer than usual, even with fresh batteries. The air was cold, but didn't move. No wind, no insects, no dripping water, just stillness. They went in roughly 40 meters. No carvings, no natural mineral lines, just smooth, cold stone, almost too smooth. And then came the shift. The woman, Ellen, said she felt a vibration in her chest, as if the cave was breathing around her. One of the men claimed he heard a whisper that didn't come from behind or ahead, but from above, like something embedded in the ceiling. When they decided to leave, they turned around and froze, because the entrance was gone. No light, no crack in the wall, no airflow, just stone, solid, seamless, silent. They didn't scream, they didn't panic, but for the next 3 hours, they moved through the dark, following the right wall, tapping and feeling for any opening. And then, suddenly, they were outside, back in daylight. No explanation. They hadn't looped back, there was no incline, no crawl space. They simply stepped and the mountain let them go. The group reported the coordinates, even marked it on personal maps. But when they returned 1 week later, the passage wasn't there. They scoured the entire area, not just once but multiple times, over months, even brought better equipment. Nothing. A decade later, Ellen returned with a new team. Still nothing. No entrance, no seam in the rocks, and her compass spun in place every time she got close to where it had been. She never went back. Locals call it the mountain's mouth. Some say Blanca Peak is alive, not metaphorically, but geologically dormant in a way we don't yet understand. Others believe the cave was never meant for humans, that it was a gate, a thin place between layers of the world. Oat elders have long avoided that side of the mountain, claiming it is guarded by something not of this time. In one old account, a shaman speaks of a cracked stone that sings only to those not listening, and if they hear it, they are not the same after. Today, hikers still visit Blanca Peak. It's beautiful, majestic, but few stray off trail near the original coordinates, and even fewer go looking for a cave that, according to official geology, never existed. But if you're ever near the base of Blanca and feel the ground shift slightly under your feet, if your flashlight dims without warning, and the air feels suddenly heavy, turn around. And don't look back, because that cave isn't lost. It's just waiting for someone the mountain wants to keep. Some places take you in, others let you think you left. But deep under Colorado's military soil, there's a tunnel that responds when you breathe too loud. And the deeper you go, the more it feels like you were expected. The tunnel that breathes, the echoes beneath Cheyenne Mountain. Not every tunnel is meant to be followed, and some echoes aren't just sound. They're responses, and they know you're listening. Cheyenne Mountain is more than just a formation. It's a fortress, literally. Buried beneath this Colorado mountain lies one of the most secure and secretive military complexes in the United States, the NORAD facility, built to survive nuclear war, biochemical attack, or worse. But this story isn't about the base that exists, it's about the tunnel they say is deeper, older, and very much still alive. In the year 2011, a former maintenance contractor, whose name remains redacted in leaked reports, claimed that while working within Cheyenne Mountain's infrastructure, he stumbled upon a passage that wasn't on any of the official maps. It was small, cracked, hidden behind a rusted support panel. No guards, no labels, just a dark, downward slope, with air too cold to belong to any ventilation system. Curious, he entered. At first it seemed like an old mining shaft, damp walls, echoing steps. But the further he walked, the more wrong it felt. The air didn't just chill, it pulsed. He reported hearing a low, rhythmic sound, like breathing, but mechanical. Not a fan, not a generator, a living rhythm. And every time he stopped moving, the sound shifted slightly, as if adjusting to his presence. After about 20 minutes, his radio went dead. No static, just silence. Then his flashlight dimmed, even with fresh batteries. Moments later, it flared to full brightness again, without him touching it. That's when he turned around, and the breathing got closer. He described the air as thick with pressure, as if the tunnel itself was aware, as if something was exhaling just behind the walls. Panicked, he sprinted back, but the path seemed longer, twists he didn't remember. Even the floor texture felt different under his boots. He emerged back into a familiar corridor, but 2 hours later than he thought, and no one else had noticed him missing. When he brought up the tunnel in reports, he was reassigned within 24 hours, cleared of duty, silenced. No one ever found the tunnel again. But years later, hikers outside the base, on public land, reported hearing similar sounds. Not animal, not wind, something steady, deep, internal. A group of amateur spelunkers even documented strange readings from handheld seismic monitors, a pulsing signal, like sonar, with no identifiable source. They said it stopped the moment they acknowledged it aloud. One member claimed their equipment recorded a voice, just for a moment, under the hum. When enhanced, it sounded like it said, "Do not knock." Geologists have dismissed the story as psychological suggestion, but others believe it's something else entirely. Some say NORAD was built on top of something, not to defend from outside threats, but to guard the world from what lies beneath. And what breathes in that tunnel has been breathing for a long, long time. Some tunnels lead you out. This one waits for you to speak. But far from the mountain, in a quiet valley with a crystal river, time itself failed to move like it should. The vanishing at Crystal River, where time didn't flow right. Most people who go missing in the wild leave behind a trail, footprints, a phone, a final scream. But in 2001, a couple disappeared in the Colorado wilderness and came back hours later with no memory, no injuries, and 6 hours erased from time itself. Crystal River flows cold and clear through Colorado's Elk Mountains. It winds between silent pine forests and jagged cliffs, its waters as still as they are cold. To most, it's a peaceful place, but for those who've been alone there long enough, it feels like the kind of silence that listens. In late September of 2001, two hikers, David and Maria Langley, set out from Marble, Colorado on a short weekend trip. Both in their 30s, experienced in the outdoors, no history of illness or instability. They followed a trail that hugged Crystal River, intending to camp one night before returning home. What happened next remains unexplained. Around 3:40 in the afternoon, a fisherman reported seeing the couple across the river. They waved. He waved back. Less than 10 minutes later, the weather changed. Brief fog, then a chill. When he looked again, they were gone. No footsteps, no sound, no visible path they could have taken. Rescue teams were called the next day. Search dogs were brought in. Helicopters, drones, ground sweep. Nothing. Then, 3 days later, they were found. Not injured, not confused. Just off. David and Maria were discovered 2 miles upstream, sitting beside the river, fully clothed, their backpacks beside them, untouched. They had no memory of the last 3 days. They insisted they had just stopped for water. They believed no more than 10 minutes had passed. But it got stranger. Maria's watch was 6 hours behind. David's GPS unit, still functioning, had recorded a straight frozen position, as if the device itself had been suspended in time. Their food was fresh, their water untouched, their phones dead. But neither one had a single scratch, bruise, or even dirt on their clothing. According to rescue reports, the couple had to be led out, not because they were physically weak, but because they said the trail looked unfamiliar. They didn't recognize the terrain they had walked many times before. They underwent psychological evaluation. No drugs, no mental health issues, no signs of trauma, just a missing window of time. They declined all interviews, moved out of state, and never returned to Colorado. Since then, multiple hikers have reported brief moments of disorientation near Crystal River. Some say they walk for 30 minutes, only to realize they've been gone for hours. Others say their GPS glitches or resets when approaching the riverbed. One man claimed he heard his own voice calling his name from behind him. He was hiking alone. Locals now refer to that stretch as the drift, a place where time stutters, where something beneath the water may be watching, not to harm you, but to observe how long you notice it's missing. And if you ever go near the river and feel like time isn't quite moving the way it should, don't trust your watch. And don't trust the trees. Because if you blink too long, you might lose a day and never realize you left. Sometimes time slips. Other times it stops on purpose. But there's a place deeper into the range where the air goes silent, the echo dies, and even the wind refuses to cross. The silent ridge, where the wind doesn't touch you. Some places feel abandoned. Others feel like you're the one who doesn't belong. On a high ridge deep in Colorado's wilderness, there's a place where the wind doesn't blow, echoes vanish, and silence isn't peaceful. It's watching. Lost Creek Wilderness is a stretch of forested highlands and granite peaks just southwest of Denver. Hikers love it for its beauty. Its red rocks, twisted pines, and narrow trails that feel far removed from modern noise. But there's one ridge, never officially named, where people don't stay long. And those who do say it feels like they've stepped out of the world. In the summer of 2008, a solo backpacker named Julian Marks recorded a strange experience in his trail journal. He had been hiking for 3 days, tracking elevation and coordinates as he moved deeper into the wilderness. Then, just past a natural stone arch, he climbed onto a high ridge. That's when the world changed. The trees stopped moving. His footsteps didn't echo. The breeze disappeared. No birds, no bugs. Not even the crunch of gravel beneath his boots. He clapped his hands. No echo. Snapped a branch. It cracked, but didn't resonate. Even the sound of his breath felt muted. He wrote, "It's like this place swallowed noise. I yelled once, and it went nowhere." Julian stayed for 20 minutes, then left. By the time he descended into the next valley, the wind returned. Birds sang again, but the ridge felt behind him, like something that hadn't let go. Since then, other hikers have reported the same thing. Sudden total silence at the top of a specific ridge. Equipment failing, GPS losing signal, watches stopping. One hiker said he felt thick air, like his hearing was underwater. Another described it more clearly. "I walked into silence, and when I walked out, it felt like something else walked in." In 2015, 2 geology students attempted to study the ridge. They recorded barometric data and sound samples for 72 hours. Their report noted something unusual, a measurable drop in ambient noise levels, followed by an unexplained loss of frequency in the sub-bass range, the range where we feel sound, not hear it. But halfway through their 3rd day, their drone malfunctioned, and one of their audio recorders melted from battery heat, despite the surrounding air being just above freezing. They left that night, never published their findings. Some believe it's a natural anomaly, a rare convergence of geography and air pressure. Others say the ridge sits on a psychic fault line, a thin place where perception distorts and other things slip through. A local legend tells of a hunter who once fell asleep there and woke up missing 12 hours. And with a voice on his phone he didn't remember recording. A voice that whispered, "Don't speak where they sleep." Even seasoned hikers avoid the area now. Not because it's dangerous, but because something knows when you arrive. And in that silence, with nothing else to distract you, you might hear your own mind, or something pretending to be it. Sound fades, time slips, But in one forgotten mountain town, there's a window that's never broken, a door that never opens, and someone still watching from the second floor. The phantom town of Silver Plume, the stranger who watched from the window. In the high altitudes of Colorado's ghost towns, some places are abandoned, and others are simply waiting. In Silver Plume, one window has never shattered. The building around it is decaying, but the figure inside has never left. Silver Plume is one of Colorado's many forgotten mining towns, a once bustling community tucked into the edge of Clear Creek Canyon. At over 9,000 feet of elevation, the gold dried up, the people left, the buildings cracked and collapsed, except one, an old brick structure near the western end of town, originally a general store, later used as a print shop, and finally a used bookstore. Locals just call it the place with the window. From the street, it's nothing special. 2 floors, a sun-bleached awning, shattered steps, and vines wrapped around the front. But on the second floor, there's a single window, always intact. Locals and tourists alike report seeing the same thing. A man standing behind the glass, always alone, always still, hands at his sides, eyes straight ahead, never blinking, never moving, never acknowledging the people staring back. In 1997, a pair of hikers from Boulder decided to investigate. They entered the building through the collapsed side entrance. The air was still, dust in the beams of light, and a sense of something being present. The second floor had no furniture, no power, just faded walls and floorboards that bowed with every step. But when they reached the window, the one where the figure was always seen, there was no one there. Then one of them turned around and gasped, because from inside the room they could see a reflection on the window pane, of someone standing behind them. When they spun back around, there was no one. But the reflection didn't vanish, it simply shifted, until it was looking directly at the one staring in. They left without speaking, and neither returned to Silver Plume again. Locals say the figure only appears between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, and only during autumn. Others claim it shows up when someone enters the building, but the strangest claim comes from a woman named Sarah, who used to run a bakery down the road. She says she saw the man in the window every day on her way to work. But when she stopped looking, she began to dream about him instead. He just stood there in my dreams in the same window, but the glass was gone, and his hands were pressed to the frame. Every night, a little closer. When asked what happened next, Sarah refused to answer. Today the town is mostly empty, but that window, cracked but unbroken, still catches the sun around the same hour every day. And every now and then, someone walking through the quiet streets will look up and freeze. Because there in the second floor window they'll see a man watching them, and the real question is never, who is he? It's, what's keeping him in there? Some ghosts are content to be seen, others only appear once you've looked too long. But far beyond the ruins and the mines, deep in a canyon no one dares map completely, there's a sound that rises from the rocks. A sound that has no source but seems to follow those who hear it all the way home. The sound that follows, whispers from Phantom Canyon. Some places leave a mark, others follow you home. In Phantom Canyon there's no cell signal, no nearby towns, and no visible threat, just a sound, a deep, pulsing whisper that rises from the rocks and doesn't stop when you leave. Phantom Canyon is one of Colorado's most remote and least documented areas, a narrow gorge in Fremont County, carved between 2 walls of jagged red stone and winding, broken paths. The name itself sounds poetic until you stay there overnight. Locals don't go, the maps don't say much, and the people who hear the sound never seem to describe it the same way. The first known account comes from 1979, when a railroad engineer working alone on a narrow gauge line near the canyon heard what he described as a heartbeat in the rocks. He assumed it was equipment, but the pulse didn't match the rhythm of the train. It was slower, deeper, and when he stood still, he realized it wasn't a vibration. It was a whisper, low, indecipherable, constant. Over the decades, more stories followed. A park ranger who lost 4 hours after sitting beside the river to rest his ears. A geologist who recorded the sound at midnight, and when he played it back, heard his own voice saying, "I see you," though he never spoke. A hiker who returned home only to hear the same sound in his house days later. Each case ended the same way. No clear source, no medical issues, just the sound, following. In 2014, a film student named Maya went into Phantom Canyon with a small crew to shoot a documentary about local folklore. They hiked in, set up camp, and recorded ambient sound for 3 nights straight. When they returned to Denver, they reviewed the audio. At first it seemed normal, birds, wind, insects, but in the background, faint and steady, was a second track, a voice. No one remembered hearing it live, but on the file it grew louder with each passing hour. It never said words, just rhythm, like breath drawn through stone. A month later, Maya reported hearing the sound again, at home, in the shower, in the walls, always in the left ear. She removed the hard drives, burned the recordings, but the sound never stopped. In her final blog post before vanishing from social media, she wrote, "It's not coming from the canyon, it's leaving with us." Researchers who've attempted to locate the phenomenon point to natural acoustics, echo pockets, magnetic shifts in the rocks, but none have stayed overnight. None have tried recording it twice. And those who spend too long inside the canyon often say the same thing. The sound gets closer when you notice it. Some believe it's not a spirit, but a sentient frequency, a resonance born from grief, death, or something ancient in the earth that we were never meant to measure. But whatever it is, it doesn't want to be heard. It wants to be remembered, and if you ever go walking near Phantom Canyon and feel a pressure in your ears, like something pushing against the silence, don't speak, don't stop, and whatever you do, don't listen too closely, because once you do, it knows where to find you next. Some places tell their story out loud, others whisper it slowly, through echoes, shadows, or the silence between footsteps. Colorado isn't just mountains and trails, it's layers of time, distortion and presence, a place where caves vanish, time skips, and sound follows you home. And maybe that's why some people never come back the same, because the state doesn't just hold mystery, it becomes a part of you. Now it's your turn. Which of these stories stayed with you the longest? Have you ever experienced something strange in the wild? Tell me in the comments, and most importantly, which state do you want to explore next? The most requested one might just be where our next journey begins.